Hello students and all of you. Today I going to teach you about the rest part of the reforms of union, that is the part 2. In our previous video I hope you all understand that the chart which I prepared for you about the two kinds of reforms and what are the areas which fall into that two forms. In this video today I have explained here about the in a details about the reforms of India UN, that is the two basic kinds of reforms which the others country demanded to change the in the policies of the UNO or the structure of the UNO. So here we have to know about the in a details manner that what kind of structure and processes they want to reform and what are the jurisdiction of UNO where they wanted to take some kind of reforms through the P5, that is permanent 5 members. So let's start with our topic. First we have to know the structure and process reform issues what raised during the time of the period. So the first one is the reforms of structure and process. See, I hope in the previous video you all have get an idea that what are the areas under the structure and process which the members wanted to reform. So here we have to know a little bit in details. So let's start with that. So in 1992, the UN General Assembly, they adopted a resolutions which later reflects in a 3 main complaints. Means when the member states they wanted to give pressure or they demanded such kind of reforms they wanted in the structure and process. So by this kind of things 3 main important resolutions complaints came out about the resolutions what they wanted because somehow you know that lots of debates and discussion will be going on whenever any kind of reforms or changement will done or demanded by the peoples. So the same thing will happen over here. When the member state they wanted to reform or changes some structure and process, so lots of debates will that was going on in that timing. So in 1992 the General Assembly they adopted some resolution, and in that resolution whatever the resolution they adopted with that resolution the 3 main problems or issues came up as a complaint in front of them. The first one is that the Security Council no longer represent contemporary world politics. See in the previous video I have already explained that after the Cold War the scenario will be totally changed, and when the UNO that was formed they created the UNO according to the situation which was in the second after the Cold War. But now the scenario or the country's scenario or the society that is totally changed. So for that reason they demanded some kind of reforms, but due to all this demand or resolution, but still the UNO Council they are no longer supporting that one, they are not changed at all, and even they are not bothered that the policies which was made during the time of the formation of UNO, now that should be changed because the realities that is totally changed. You can change get a vast changement during the period of the just after the Cold War and right now. So the Security Council are not really bothered about the realities, political realities which is right now are changed totally from the period of the second after Cold War to now. Next, the complaint was that its decision reflect only the Western values and interests and are dominated by a few powers. That means whatever the resolution or whatever the decisions are taken, the members are complaining that all the decision which is taken by the UNO that only taken on the basis of the values of P5 members, that is the permanent members. So basically they are following the Western values. They are not at all are giving a take care or give focus upon the others value also, and they are mainly interested to give a decision on the basis of their own Western values, and the powers are dominated by a few hands. So here the few powers means the hand of the P5, that is the permanent member. So basically the decisions are taken by the permanent member and on the basis of their Western values, and also they dominated the powers upon the member. So that is also one kind of complaint was taken by the members. Last one is that they said that it lacks the equitable representation. Means if you consider the map of the world, you can get through that all the members are not really the all the countries or from all the continent, all the countries are not the member of the UNO. That means if you see the geographical representative, if the UNO wanted to create an equality, then they have to take all the members from each and every continent or each and every geographical representative. That means if you go through with the Asia's continent, you get that from there China and Japan, they are the two representatives included in the member, as well as if you go towards the North America, there you get the US. If you go towards the Europe, you get France and Britain also. But if you look after towards the Australias, towards the South America, towards the African continent, from there you can get that there is a no at all members came in the permanent 5 members. So from that reason we can say that yes, it is not equitable representations. There is a not at all doing any kind of equitability when they are choosing their permanent 5 members. That means the representatives are not come from the equal manner. Now if I am saying that towards the demand of increasing membership, see after this kind of complaint when it's come, so in that area, in view of this growing demand for structuring of the UNO, means they wanted to restructure the UNO, and lots of complaints came in path of that. So on 1st January 1997, the UNO Secretary General Kofi Annan, they take initiative on the inquiry that how the UNO should be reformed. They take some kind of steps so that the UNO will be reformed, because all kind of resolutions and the things came out. And even he gives some kind of suggestions or some kind of resolutions which they wanted to take for the after collecting all the demands from the member states. So basically in 1st January 1997, Kofi Annan he take initiative after listening all kinds of demands from the member states, and they created some kind of suggestion or give some kind of steps, a criteria you can say, on which basis of new permanent member or non-permanent member they can be choose. So new member will be choose on if they are qualified, if they are fulfill this kind of criteria, then only. Now we have to know that what are the criteria for becoming a new member in the UNO, which is taken by the Kofi Annan and which is declared by them. So let's start with that. So the members should be according to the Kofi Annan initiatives, they make some conditions or criteria, and under that criteria a member should be a major economic power. Means whoever want to take want to become a new member of the UNO, they in the permanent one only, so they should be a strong economical power, then they have a strong military power also. They have some they have to give a huge amount of contribution, annual contribution in the UN budget, just like USA what they are given. The big nation in terms of its population, they whoever want to be a big member, they have to a very huge amount of population, just like our country. A nation that respect democracy and human rights, whoever wanted to become a member, and if the UNO will choose them, then that member should be strong economic power, should be strong military power, have a huge amount of contribution to UNO budget. They have a big nation, means they have huge population, should have that nation, and that nation should respect all the norms of the democracy and also follow the human rights, and also in their countries the human rights procedure should be followed without dominating any citizens or violating the policies. Even the country should be well rich in heritage. They have to be represent themselves like a diversified country where they have a rich geographical area, they have a rich economical system and have a rich culture. So the one thing which came in your mind that these all the criteria which is taken, or which is the condition before to make a new member, which is given by the UN. So if I take the example, our country, that is India, whether the India have this all kind of criteria or not, if we are seeing this. So let's just in a very quick manner just have a look that what our country have. So our country have a good economical power also, our country have a very good military power and manpower also. Somehow our country have a very huge, it's the second largest populated country in throughout the world. We also respect a lot of democracy because we are a multi-party system and a democratic country, and where we are following all kinds of rights, that is especially human rights. And also we have a very rich Indian culture, we have an economical system also, we have a very huge amount of geographical tributary. So due to this reason, and somehow the India has always tried to contribute in the UN budget. So why not India should become a member, among the 5 permanent member? So that is the one question will raise in everyone's mind. So by this way, one another question it's solved, that all these criteria which is made by the UNO, still India has fulfilled all the criteria, but still India still now is not becoming the member of the UN, permanent one. So from that reason, we can say that whether this kind of criteria is enough to become the new member, or we have to also take care about the veto power of the permanent member. So basically we can say, I can say you that along with the criteria is made by the UNO, but still the UNO somehow are not clearly described that how much economic power a country should, how much the military power, how much percentage a country should contribute so that they become a new member. Then also the numbers of population is also given or explained by the UNO. So some loopholes will be here behind this kind of suggestions also, some kind of loophole are there. So without knowing this kind of things, or without clearing this kind of things, no country will become a new member. Now the second point, from I hope you get an idea from the chart which I prepared in earlier video, that along with the increasing the member of the Security Council, there is also another term which they wanted, that is should be their demands that to abolish the veto power. That is a very much important. Due to this veto power, somehow the India does not right now become a member, permanent member of UNO. See the charter, the rules and regulations, whatever it is, during the time of the UNO Charter when it is made, they are giving some kind of privileges to only the 5 permanent members. What are the privileges? The first one is the permanency, that particular 5 one will be permanent till the UNO will exist. And next one is the veto power. They have get some kind of veto power, they have get some kind of privilege power. So for why they are doing this kind of, that time the UNO are declared that as just after the Second World War, there is a lots of changement that was going on, and the people and the country, those who are not very strong, they are unable to stabilize the world. So for stabilizing the world, for stable all the policies of the world, we need some kind of countries, those who are try to keep stabilizing this one thing. So for that reason, in that timing, the charter are declared 5 members that is China, US, UK, France, Japan. So these are the Russia's. So these are the countries who wanted who are become the 5 permanent member, because that time they are were the superpowers. So they have a very strong power in their hand, whether it's economical way or whether you can say in the others way. So for that reason, they charter, they give some kind of privileges to this permanent 5 permanent member, and that's the privileges. The one is permanency, and second was the veto power. And whereas this all given to the permanent, but if you look after the non-permanent members, the non-permanent members are serving only for the 2 years, and at a time without re-election immediately, means after completing the 2 terms, that members are not re-elected again immediately. So if any particular country become a they completed their 2 terms as a non-permanent member, so the next term they that country cannot be choose as a non-permanent member, and also they have to give a chance to the new elected members. So from this you can understand that non-permanent members don't have any kind of permanency, and the non-permanent members are elected in a manner that they represent all the continents of the world without any veto power. Means the non-permanent member, they don't have any veto power, they have only one chance to give a vote of their agreement or going against, but they don't have any kind of special veto power. And also they are choosing in that manner that from all the continents everyone get a chance to become a non-permanent members. So now with these things, I hope I can properly explain this demands of the abolish veto power. Now I think in your mind there is one question maybe arises, that what is veto power, because in lots of slides I am talking about the veto power. So let's see that what is veto power. So the question is, what is veto power? Veto power means when you all know that all the members have one vote in the voting system when they are doing taking any kind of decision in the Security Council. So all the members get a chance to give their vote in one time. But the permanent members, they can vote in a negative manner. Means if suppose in any decision, if all the permanent members and the non-permanent members, they give their vote and 2/3 majority votes are in favor of that decision, but suddenly if some among the 5 permanent members, if anyone wanted to block the decision, then they can use their power, that is known as the negative veto power. Means if any particular among any one country among the 5 permanent members, they wanted to stall out that particular decision, they wanted to block the decision, then they can use their power, and if they disagree with the decision, then that decision will not be passed out from the Security Council, and that is known as the negative power, which is known as the veto power. So you can understand that how much important the veto power. So for that reason it should be removed from in the hand of the 5 permanent member, because whenever the veto power they have, they can use it in their for their personal issues also, and they cannot be give a chance to any new one for becoming the 5 permanent member, because they don't want it to remove from it. Now we have to know the jurisdiction of the UNO. So before the jurisdiction of UNO, one thing I want to clear you of that this veto power which we have already seen here, that veto power is some of them are very much in favor of that veto power, where they say that as the veto power in the hand of we should be given, so that it will be promoting the international stability, so that not the peoples are randomly change their decision, and the stability will come in front of the international way. They also somehow also said that in favor of the veto power, that safeguard against the domination of any one country like USA. Suppose if, as we know that USA is somehow giving more contribution in the UNO, is the highest contributed country of the UNO. So if there will be not a veto power in the hand of the 5 permanent members, then the USA will be do whatever they want to do and no one can be stop them. So for they saying that to stopping in one particular country, that not to misusing their power, they needed the veto power in the hand of the 5 permanent member. But some people also think that it is one kind of undemocratic, because only the powers of the throughout the world, the main power will go only the 5 members of or the 5 nations of the world. That is totally undemocratic. Some also say that it causes the inaction against the war crimes, human rights violations and different kind of things, because they are sometimes are using their personal revenges and using their veto power. Some also said that a single country can prevent a major decision from taking, because they said that the USA, the 5 permanent members, they are somehow using their personal things in for fulfilling their personal revenges by this veto power. But the question is that whether this kind of demand, that is the 5 permanent abolition of the veto power from the 5 permanent member, whether that will agree by the 5 permanent member to remove it, because you all know that whenever something is in our hand, the power is in our hand, we never wanted to remove it from our hand. So basically we can say that all the members of the UNO, they can agree with that by giving the 2/3 majority. Whenever the 2/3 the decision wanted to pass out from the any organization, 2/3 majority decision will be needed, and that easily given by all the members, because all the members are benefited if the veto power will be abolished from the UNO. And also they can also be rectified it with their own nation's parliament also, that will be but the main thing also along with the 2/3 majority, the 5 permanent members should agree with that, otherwise the powers the decision will not be passed out. So this is the main question, whether the P5, that is the permanent 5, whether they are agree with that, they removed it or not, that is the main one. And also we can say that whether if they are not agree, then how the world will be changed and how the world can change their reforms in the UNO. So for that reason, the great powers, they would lose their interest in the world body, because after abolishing this they don't have any kind of powers. Then they would do whatever they want without their support of UNO. So for that reason, this kind of things are not ready. I hope not ready. They are not the 5 permanent members are not agree at all with this. So I hope you all understand how much veto power is important for that 5 permanent members. Now we have to come to the second reforms, which you in the previous chart you already know, that is the jurisdiction of UNO. Now let's see that what are in the jurisdiction of UNO. So after all of this structured process reforms, a new meeting was held in 2005, where September 2005, where all the United Nations members, they are celebrating their 60th anniversary, and they wanted in that celebrating meeting, they wanted to change, they wanted to review the areas of the UNO. So for that reason, the leaders in this meeting, they decided to take some kind of steps, so that should be taken some kind of steps so that they can make UNO more relevant in the changing context or in the changing scenario. They wanted that the UNO should be matched with the changing society, and so that they will take some kind of steps. Now let's see what are the steps they have taken so that the UNO will be more relevant in today's world. The first one, they take a step that there should be create a peace building commission, because nowadays lots of wars are going on among the countries for their boundaries or for some other country. Like if I'm saying that the India-Pakistan war, the India-China war, so for that reason they wanted to create some kind of peace commissions, peace building commission, so that they will be take care of that. Then they establish a human rights council. One human rights council they were created, so that they will be not take care towards the area where the human rights are the violating among any country. So it will be it was operational from the 19 June 2006. agreement to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. So they wanted that up to 2030, some kinds of agreement, some kind of development they are planning, and they wanted that all the development, whole development will be going on, and up to 2030 they all are developed everything which they taken under the Millennium Goal agreement. Development goals means all the agreements should be developed, should be achieved up to 2030. Then they wanted to they also take a step to create a democratic fund so that it will be easier to give help to any country. They also try to do some kind of agreement so that it will wind up to the trusteeship council, which I already explained in our previous some videos, that they wanted to wind up with the trusteeship council. They also try to remove the terrorism from all over the world, whether what kind of terrorism it is, but terrorism is not at all good for the world countries and their atmosphere. So for that reason they wanted to contaminate, or they wanted to remove from all over the countries. And they also try to accept that the responsibilities of international community as a administrator or as a government. If in any country the peoples are not take care by their own government, and they are somehow are violating the aristocracies of or they are violating the citizens rights, so in that timing this UNO will take care of that. And in any country, if they are unable to maintain their citizens, then in that timing the UNO will help that government to maintaining their citizens protections or prevent the citizens aristocracies. So these are the things which we have to know in this which you already, and I hope you all understand in this module or from the video, that what are the reforms and what are the changement the UNO will done after the demand of the reforms from the member states. So but still the question came at the end of this module. Some questions I know it came into your mind, that whether this kind of all the steps what is taken by the UNO, or what are the areas they are demanding by the United Nations members, whether they are fulfilled or not. See, some of the areas are fulfilled and some are not, because the 5 permanent member, which I already explained, that 5 permanent member never wanted to lose their powers. For that reason they don't wanted to give that kind of fulfill all the demands what the members are wanted or the demanded. So I hope you all understand in details about the reforms. In our next video I will explain about the India and the UNO reforms and the unipolar world of UNO. Till that, go through with the videos very carefully, and thank you for watching the video. I hope you all understand. Thank you very much.